25 years of brotherhood ended with a single signature in a hospital corridor. My name is Marcus. I'm 38 years old. And this is a story of how my brother nearly beat me to death, fired me from my own company, and then fell into the very trap he created for himself. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is simply waiting for the right moment. Let me take you back to where it all began. Growing up in Detroit, Michigan, my older brother David and I were inseparable. He was 42 when this story took place, 4 years my senior, and had always been a golden child. Star quarterback in high school, full scholarship to University of Michigan, MBA from Northwestern. Everything came easy to David. Me? I was the tech geek, the one who spent weekends in the garage building computers while David was out partying. Our father, Robert Sterling, owned Sterling Construction, a mid-sized general contracting company that had been in our family for 3 generations. Dad always assumed David would take over the business. That was the plan. Anyway, David would handle operations and client relations, while I'd modernize our systems and bring us into the digital age. In 2015, when I was 28 and David was 32, Dad had his first heart attack. Nothing too serious, but it was a wake-up call. He decided it was time to start transitioning the business to us. The company was worth about $8 million at the time, with steady contracts throughout Michigan and Ohio. Dad set up the business structure carefully. David would own 51% and serve as CEO. I'd own 49% and serve as COO and CTO. It seemed fair. David had the business degree and the people skills. I had the technical expertise to modernize our operations. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. The first few years were actually great. David focused on landing bigger contracts while I revolutionized our project management systems, implemented drone surveying, and developed custom software that made us 30% more efficient than our competitors. By 2018, Sterling Construction had grown to $18 million in annual revenue. Dad was proud, our employees were happy, and David and I seemed to work well together. But success changed David. As the company grew, so did his ego. He started making unilateral decisions without consulting me. When I'd question his choices, he'd remind me who was a majority owner and CEO. "I don't need your permission, Marcus," became his favorite phrase. The real problem started in 2019. David had married his college girlfriend, Jennifer, in 2016. Nice woman, worked as a marketing director for a pharmaceutical company. But by 2019, their marriage was in trouble. David was working late, traveling constantly, and when he was home, he was either drinking or arguing with Jennifer. I tried to be supportive. I covered for him when he missed important meetings. I handled client calls when he was too hungover to function. I even gave him advances on his salary when his gambling habit, something I'd only recently discovered, put him in a financial bind. But David saw my help as weakness, not support. The breaking point came on March 15th, 2020. We'd just landed the biggest contract in our company's history, a $12 million government project to build 3 schools in suburban Detroit. It was a 2-year project that would set us up for life. I'd been the one to identify the opportunity, prepare the technical specifications, and coordinate with our engineering partners to submit the winning bid. David called a company meeting the day after we got the contract. "This government project is going to require some organizational changes," he announced to our 12 employees. "Effective immediately, I'll be taking direct control of all operations. Marcus will be stepping back from day-to-day management to focus on technical support." I stared at him. "What are you talking about? We've been planning this project together for months." The client specifically requested that I be the primary point of contact. David lied smoothly. They want to work with the CEO directly. That was complete bullshit, and he knew it. I'd been in every meeting with the government officials. They'd specifically praised my technical expertise and attention to detail. "David, this is ridiculous," I said. "I designed half the systems we're using for this project." His face hardened. "This is my company, Marcus. My decision. You can accept it, or you can find another job." The room fell silent. Our employees looked uncomfortable, staring at their hands or the floor. These were people I'd worked with for years, people who respected me and knew I wasn't just technical support. I should have walked away then, should have taken my 49% stake and started my own company. But this was my family's business. My grandfather had started it in 1952. My father had built it into something substantial. I wasn't going to let David destroy it because of his ego and personal problems. So I stayed, and I fought back. Over the next 6 months, David systematically pushed me out of every important decision. He changed computer passwords without telling me. He scheduled client meetings without inviting me. He even had his secretary, Maria, stop sending me copies of important documents. When I confronted him about it, he'd always have an excuse. You seem busy with the technical stuff, so I handled it. Oh, I thought it would be more efficient if I took care of it directly. But I wasn't stupid. I could see what was happening. David was positioning himself to buy out my shares or force me out entirely. He was probably hoping I'd get frustrated and quit, maybe sell my shares below market value. What David didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this possibility since our father's heart attack. You see, growing up with David had taught me one crucial lesson. He was impulsive, arrogant, and he never read the fine print. In late 2020, I quietly consulted with our family lawyer, Thomas Richardson. Tom had been handling our family's legal affairs for over 20 years. I trusted him, and more importantly, he'd seen David's behavior firsthand during family meetings. Marcus, Tom said during our confidential meeting, I've been wondering when you'd come see me. Your brother's been asking about the process for buying out minority shareholders. My heart sank, but I wasn't surprised. What did you tell him? The truth. According to your father's original partnership agreement, either partner can trigger buyout, but it requires a 60-day notice period and independent valuation by 3 certified business appraisers. And David didn't read the agreement carefully, did he? Tom smiled grimly. David never reads anything carefully. He just asked for the bottom line. That's when I realized something that would change everything. The partnership agreement had a clause that David had never bothered to understand. Section 12, subsection C. In the event that a partner engages in conduct detrimental to the business relationship or attempts to defraud the other partner, the affected partner may petition for dissolution of the partnership and full transfer of business assets. The key phrase was conduct detrimental to the business relationship. Tom explained that this could include anything from financial fraud to creating a hostile work environment. I started documenting everything. Every meeting David excluded me from. Every decision he made without consulting me. Every lie he told a client about who was responsible for our technical innovations. I installed security cameras in my office and started recording our conversations. Michigan is a one-party consent state for recording. By January 2021, I had a folder full of evidence showing that David was systematically excluding me from the business I partially owned and had helped build. But I didn't act on it yet, because I learned something else from growing up with David. Timing is everything. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. On February 8, 2021, David and Jennifer's divorce was finalized. The settlement cost him $2.3 million, half of his personal assets, plus ongoing alimony. He was financially strapped, stressed, and drinking more than ever. That's when he made his biggest mistake. David came to my office on February 12th, clearly drunk, even though it was only 2 p.m. Marcus, we need to talk, he slurred, closing the door behind him. About what? About you selling me your shares. I'm tired of this partnership bullshit. I want to own this company outright. I stayed calm. Okay, what are you offering? $2 million. Cash. I almost laughed. Our 49% stake was worth at least $4.5 million based on our current revenue and contracts. That's well below market value. David. He leaned across my desk, his breath reeking of whiskey. It's what I'm offering. Take it or leave it. I'll need to think about it. David's face turned red. There's nothing to think about. I'm the CEO. I'm the majority owner. You're nothing but a glorified IT guy. Actually, I'm a partner in this business. I own 49% of everything we built. That's when he snapped. David grabbed me by the shirt and yanked me out of my chair. You ungrateful little shit. Everything you have is because of me. Dad wanted me to run this company, not you. David, let go of me. Instead, he shoved me hard against the wall. You think you're so smart with your computers and your fucking spreadsheets? You're nothing. You're a nobody. I tried to push him away, but David was bigger and stronger. He'd always been bigger and stronger. He punched me in the stomach, knocking the wind out of me. Then he hit me in the face, splitting my lip. I fell to the floor, and he kicked me in the ribs. You're fired, he said, standing over me. Get your shit and get out. And if you ever try to come back, I'll finish what I started. I lay on the floor for several minutes after he left, tasting blood, struggling to breathe. 3 of our employees, Sarah from accounting, Mike from the warehouse, and Tom from the field crew, helped me to my feet and insisted on driving me to the hospital. At Detroit Medical Center, the doctors confirmed that I had 2 cracked ribs, concussion, and extensive bruising. They kept me overnight for observation. The next morning, I called Tom Richardson from my hospital bed. Tom, I need you to prepare a petition for dissolution of the partnership. I'm invoking Section 12, subsection C. Marcus, are you sure? This will mean the end of Sterling Construction as you know it. David ended it yesterday when he beat me up and fired me from my own company. Okay, I'll need documentation of the assault. I have hospital records, witness statement from 3 employees, and security camera footage from my office. There was a pause. Security cameras? Since when? Since I started planning for this moment 6 months ago. Tom was quiet for a moment. Marcus, I've known you since you were 10 years old. You've always been the smart one. What do you need me to do? Prepare the dissolution papers. But I want something else too. I want to buy David out completely. I want 100% ownership of Sterling Construction. That's ambitious and expensive. Based on our current valuation, that would cost you about $9 million. I know. I've been preparing for this for months. I have financing arranged. What I didn't tell Tom was that I'd been quietly negotiating with 3 different investment groups since late 2020. I'd shown them our financial projections, our government contracts, and our growth potential. 2 of them were willing to provide acquisition financing in exchange for minority stakes in the company. The plan was simple. I'd use investor money to buy out David's 51% stake, then spend the next 5 years growing the company to the point where I could buy back the investors' shares and own 100% of Sterling Construction. But first, I had to survive David's inevitable counterattack. He didn't disappoint. 3 days after I filed the dissolution petition, David showed up at my apartment with his lawyer, some expensive suit from downtown Detroit. Marcus, this is getting out of hand, David said, trying to sound reasonable. We're brothers. We can work this out. I looked at him through my swollen, blackened eyes. You beat me up and fired me, David. There's nothing to work out. His lawyer, a sharp-looking woman named Patricia Wells, spoke up. Mr. Sterling, my client is prepared to offer you $3 million for your 49% stake. That's well above market value. No, $3.5 million. Final offer. No, I want dissolution and buyout. Either David sells to me, or we liquidate everything and split the proceeds. David's face turned red again. You can't be serious. You don't have the money to buy me out. Actually, I do. That's when I told him about the investor financing. David's lawyer looked concerned, but David just laughed. Marcus, you're dreaming. No investor is going to back you over me. I'm the CEO. I have the relationships. I have the experience. We'll see. The legal battle lasted 3 months. During that time, David ran Sterling Construction into the ground. Without me handling the technical aspect of our projects, deadlines were missed, quality control suffered, and client complaints poured in. Our biggest government contract was put on probationary status due to repeated delays and cost overruns. Meanwhile, I was building relationships with our key employees, many of whom were frustrated with David's erratic management style. Sarah from accounting told me that David had been paying personal expenses from company accounts. Mike from the warehouse said David had been showing up to work drunk at least twice a week. Tom from the field crew reported that David had been verbally abusing subcontractors and had cost us 3 major supplier relationships. All of this information went into my legal case. On June 15, 2021, Judge Patricia Morris ruled in my favor. She found that David had indeed engaged in conduct detrimental to the business relationship and ordered the dissolution of our partnership. David would have 60 days to either buy out my shares at fair market value or sell his shares to me at the same valuation. The business was appraised at $16.2 million, higher than I'd expected, thanks to our government contracts and growth potential. David owed me $7.938 million for my 49% stake. I owed him $8.262 million for his 51% stake. The difference was $324,000, a manageable amount with my investor backing. But David wasn't done fighting. "I'm not selling to you," he told me outside the courthouse. "I'll burn this company to the ground before I let you have it." "That's your choice, David. But the judge's order is final. You have 60 days. What happened next surprised everyone, including me. David had a heart attack. On July 3, 2021, 18 days after the court ruling, David collapsed in his office. Sarah from accounting found him unconscious on the floor and called 911. He was rushed to Detroit Medical Center, the same hospital where I'd been treated after he beat me up. The doctors said it was a massive heart attack, likely brought on by stress, alcohol abuse, and poor diet. David was 42 years old, and he nearly died. As I sat in the hospital waiting room, I thought about our childhood. David teaching me to throw a football. David defending me from bullies at school. David helping me with my math homework when I was struggling in 8th grade. Despite everything that had happened between us, he was still my brother. When David regained consciousness 3 days later, I was sitting beside his bed. "Marcus," he whispered, his voice weak and hoarse. "Hey, David, how are you feeling?" "Like shit." He tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. "The doctors say I almost died." "Yeah, you scared everyone." We sat in silence for a few minutes. Finally, David spoke again. "Marcus, I'm sorry. About everything. The way I treated you, the fight in your office. I fucked up. I fucked up everything." I nodded. "Yeah, you did." "The business, what's going to happen?" "That's up to you. The court order still stands. You can buy me out, or I can buy you out. Either way, the partnership is dissolved." David closed his eyes. "I don't have the money to buy you out. The divorce, the legal fees. I'm broke, Marcus." "I know. And you have investors lined up." "Yes." He was quiet for a long time. When he opened his eyes again, they were filled with tears. "I don't want to sell to you," he said. "Not because I hate you, but because it means admitting that I failed, that I destroyed everything Dad built." "David, Dad built this company for both of us. He wanted us to work together." "But we can't." "We tried, and I ruined it." "Maybe, but the company doesn't have to die with our partnership." Over the next week, while David recovered in the hospital, we had several difficult conversations. David was facing not just the loss of the business, but also the reality that his health was failing and his personal life was in shambles. Finally, on July 12th, David agreed to sell his shares to me. "I have one condition," he said. "I want to stay on as a consultant for 6 months. Help with the transition. Make sure the government contracts don't get screwed up." "David, after everything that's happened." I know I don't deserve it. But those contracts represent 2 years of work, and some of the relationships are personal. If you fire me completely, we might lose them. He had a point. Our government contracts were worth $8.4 million over 2 years. Losing them would cripple the company before I even had a chance to rebuild it. Okay, I said. 6 months. As a consultant, not as an employee. You report to me, not the other way around. Understood. The paperwork was completed on July 20th, 2021. David signed over his 51% stake in Sterling Construction in exchange for $8.262 million, funded by my investor partners. I now own 100% of the company that had been in our family for 3 generations. But the story doesn't end there. Remember how I said David never read the fine print? Well, it turns out that was even more true than I realized. The consulting agreement that David signed included a standard non-compete clause. For 2 years after the end of his consulting period, he couldn't start a competing business, work for a competitor, or solicit our clients or employees. What David didn't realize was that the agreement also included a clause requiring him to repay his buyout money if he violated the non-compete. David's consulting period ended in January 2022. In March 2022, I heard through industry contact that David was starting his own construction company, Sterling Brothers Construction. He'd already approached 3 of our former clients and had hired away 2 of our project managers. I called Tom Richardson. Tom, David's violating his non-compete agreement. Are you sure? Positive. I have documentation. What do you want to do about it? I want to enforce the repayment clause. Tom was quiet for a moment. Marcus, that means David would have to repay the entire $8.262 million. He doesn't have that kind of money. I know. If you enforce this, you'll bankrupt your own brother. I thought about that hospital room, about David apologizing with tears in his eyes. I thought about our childhood, about all the good time before money and ego got in the way. Then I thought about him beating me up in my own office, firing me from a company I'd helped build, and systematically excluding me from the business that was supposed to be our shared legacy. Tom, send him the demand letter. David's response came a week later. A phone call at 11 p.m. Marcus, you can't be serious about this. I'm completely serious. You signed a non-compete agreement. You're violating it. I need to make a living. What am I supposed to do? You're supposed to honor the agreement you signed, the same way I honored the partnership agreement for years while you pushed me out. This is different. No, David, this is exactly the same. You made a deal, and now you're trying to break it when it's inconvenient. David was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "What do you want?" "I want you to shut down Sterling Brothers Construction, stop soliciting our clients, and return our employees. If you do that within 30 days, I'll waive the repayment clause. And if I don't, then you owe me $8.262 million, plus interest and legal fees. You know I don't have that kind of money. Then you shouldn't have violated the agreement." David hung up. 3 weeks later, Sterling Brothers Construction quietly closed its doors. The 2 project managers David had hired came back to work for me. Our clients stayed with us. David never called to apologize or explain. I heard from mutual friends that he'd moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where he was working as a project manager for someone else's construction company. Meanwhile, Sterling Construction thrived under my leadership. Without David's ego and poor decisions holding us back, we completed our government contracts ahead of schedule and under budget. Word spread about our efficiency and quality, and we started landing bigger projects. By the end of 2022, annual revenue had grown to $28 million. I was able to buy out one of my investor partners, increasing my ownership stake to 75%. In early 2023, I got a call from Tom Richardson. "Marcus, I just got a call from David's lawyer in Phoenix. He wants to know if you'd be interested in settling your differences." "What kind of settlement?" "His not being specific, but I think David's having money problems. His new job doesn't pay nearly what he was making as a company owner." I thought about it for a week. Part of me wanted to reach out, to try to rebuild our relationship. But every time I considered it, I remembered the look in David's eyes when he was beating me up, the satisfaction in his voice when he fired me. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Tell David's lawyer that I'm not interested in any settlement. I told Tom. The non-compete agreement stands as written. Are you sure? He is your brother. He stopped being my brother the day he put his hands on me. That was 18 months ago. I haven't spoken to David since that phone call in 2022. I've heard through the family grapevine that he's doing okay in Phoenix. Not great, but okay. He's renting a small apartment, driving a used car, and trying to rebuild his life one day at a time. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh, if I should have given him another chance, found a way to forgive and move forward. But then I remember something my father told me when I was 12 years old. We were working on a project in the garage, and I'd made a mistake that ruined several hours of work. Marcus, Dad said, the difference between a mistake and a choice is intent. Mistakes happen to everyone. But when you make a conscious choice to hurt someone, especially someone who trusts you, that's not a mistake. That's a character flaw. David didn't make a mistake when he excluded me from our business. He didn't make a mistake when he beat me up and fired me. Those were choices, deliberate, calculated choices to put his ego and his one above our partnership and our family bond. And when he violated the non-compete agreement, that was another choice. He chose to break his word because he thought I wouldn't enforce the consequences. Today, Sterling Construction employs 43 people and generates $35 million in annual revenue. We've expanded into renewable energy projects and smart building technology. I own 85% of the company, having bought out most of my investor partners. I've thought about changing the company name, removing the Sterling that connects it to David and our family history, but I decided to keep it. Not for David, but for my father and grandfather, who built something worth preserving, and for myself, because I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's success. David wanted to push me out and take everything for himself. Instead, his actions gave me the motivation and the legal grounds to take everything from him. He thought he was the smart one, the business-savvy one, the natural leader. But he forgot that I was the one who actually understood how the business worked, who had the technical skills, and who had the patience to plan for the long term. Most importantly, he forgot that in business, as in life, your reputation is everything. And once you lose people's trust, it's almost impossible to get it back. The employees who witnessed David's erratic behavior and abuse still work for me. The clients who saw his poor decision-making and missed deadlines still trust me to deliver quality work. The industry professionals who watched him destroy our partnership still respect my integrity and competence. David burned all those bridges in his quest for total control. I didn't have to destroy him. He destroyed himself. These days, I'm focused on building rather than looking backward. Sterling Construction is positioned to become one of the largest construction companies in the Midwest. We're bidding on projects worth $50 million or more. I'm planning to take the company public within the next 5 years. But I'll never forget the lessons David taught me, even if he didn't mean to teach them. First, never trust someone completely, even if they're family. Always have a backup plan and legal protection. Second, document everything. The security cameras, the recorded conversations, the employee witness statements. All of that evidence was crucial when I needed to prove David's misconduct. Third, patience is more powerful than anger. I could have confronted David immediately when I realized what he was doing. Instead, I waited, gathered evidence, and chose my moment carefully. Fourth, understand the fine print. David's biggest mistake was not reading the contract he signed. Those agreements gave me the legal tools I needed to protect myself and ultimately take control of the company. And finally, success is the best revenge. I could have spent years trying to get back at David personally. Instead, I channeled my energy into making Sterling Construction more successful than it had ever been under his leadership. Every new contract we win, Every employee we hire, every client who praises our work, it's proof that David was wrong about me. I wasn't just technical support or a glorified IT guy. I was the heart and brains of the operation, and the company's success since his departure proves it. 6 months ago, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. David was getting remarried to someone named Rebecca, a woman he'd met in Phoenix. The ceremony would be small, family only, at a courthouse in Arizona. I threw the invitation away without responding. Some people might say I should forgive and forget, that family is more important than business, that holding grudges only hurts yourself. But those people weren't beaten up by their own brother. They weren't fired from their own company. They weren't systematically excluded and humiliated by someone they trusted. David made his choices. I made mine, and I'm completely at peace with how things turned out. Sterling Construction continues to grow and thrive. Our employees are happy, our clients are satisfied, and our future is bright. I've built something larger and more successful than David ever imagined possible. And the best part? I did it all without compromising my integrity or treating people the way David treated me. That's not just business success, that's personal vindication. Sometimes people ask me if I miss having a brother. The honest answer is that I miss the brother I thought I had, but I don't miss the person David actually turned out to be. Because the brother I thought I had would never have put his hands on me in anger. The brother I thought I had would never have fired me from our family business out of petty jealousy. The brother I thought I had would have honored his agreements and respected our partnership. But that brother was apparently just in my imagination. The real David was someone who saw family relationships as transactions, who used trust as a weapon, and who believed that might makes right. I'm better off without that person in my life, even if we share the same last name and the same childhood memories. So here's my advice to anyone dealing with a similar situation. Document everything. Understand your legal rights. Be patient. And never let anyone, not even family, convince you that you deserve to be treated badly. And if someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Because in the end, the people who truly matter will respect your boundaries and your success. Everyone else is just noise. 25 years of brotherhood ended with David's signature on a hospital document. But 25 years of building something meaningful started the day I decided to fight back. And that's a trade I'd make again every single time.